All right, so we're now live, which is good, and then we can hit play for all. Live stream is starting soon. Dun, dun, dun. Here we are.
Okay.
All right, so welcome everyone. I've probably just forced upon you to be able to hear our voice. One of the things that you'll note is there's a bit of actually a lag between when we're talking and when you all actually hear us. But we wanted to just let you know that we have all the different pieces of the system starting. We welcome you all here. It's nice to see Gina here. And Ido and Matthew and Iris and Renee and me and Candace so far. If we find out that come 3 o'clock, it's just a group of 10 or so of us, and we can all just jump into one Google Hangout and chat together. And if we find that we have more people than that, then we'll make accommodations to, we'll use the Hangout and we'll make accommodations to fit everyone. But just so we know that people are here and can hear us and all these kinds of things, if you can send us a little welcome message in the chat window down there. Most people have said hi, but maybe if people can tell us what the weather is like, where they are, or something about what you've been working on over the past week, so we can get to know who's here and what kinds of things are going on. And then we'll formally start in about 5 minutes at 3 o'clock when we said we would start. All right, goodbye, Gina. Thanks for joining us briefly. I'll put a little music on so that people know that we're here. So for those of you just arriving, we'll get started in just a couple minutes at 3 p.m. when everyone gets a chance to show up. All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started formally? Welcome, everyone. My name is Justin Reich, and we're so glad that you could all get together on what is a beautiful afternoon in many parts of the United States. It was probably a cold, dark morning in Korea, and maybe different weather at different times in other parts of the world. We're really lucky to have this chance to get together and in a very informal and fun and casual way talk about what we think good work looks like in an interdisciplinary field of learning at scale. So I think most people now have gotten used to the Unhangout platform. Let me just tell you briefly sort of how our conversation will work. So Candace and I are in Hangout on Air, which I hopefully have suggested to everyone. Let me just sort of check and make sure. If you can hear me, you should be able to press play or refresh the Hangout on Air in the top left. I could say that out loud, but it would only help people who are already here. So welcome to Dan and Kimberly and those others of us who are joining. So Candace and I will just do a little bit of disquisition to get us started. To some extent, actually, we're just filling some time so that people can come in late. As we're talking, I would totally invite people to chat in the chat window, make commentaries, say what you're excited about, introduce yourself, those kinds of things. But the heart of our conversation, especially now that we have enough folks, is we're gonna break up into some small breakout rooms, which hopefully you can see but not log into yet in the bottom left. Which are sort of 4 working groups to talk about what good work might look like in different kinds of contexts. And the idea is that we would talk in those groups for about a half an hour, 45 minutes, or whatever sort of feels good to most folks. try to get a handle on one dimension of things. We've proposed some possible breakout rooms. We'll have some time to hear what other folks is worthwhile to talk about. We'll ask people to take notes collaboratively within those spaces. You can see there's a link to a Google Doc that will take notes in. And then we'll all come back together and we'll ask one person from each group who maybe will have been taking notes to be able to sort of report back on the conversations that are happening within those groups. So to Hillary and Scott and Elena and Daniel, welcome. We're super glad to have you here. Let me see, my colleague Candice is here and muted, but maybe Candice, you can unmute yourself for a little bit and just give a welcome and share with folks your hopes for what we might be able to accomplish in the conversation which is forthcoming.
Great, thanks Justin. Welcome everyone, it's great to see everyone today. The reason that Justin and I have decided to have this meeting comes partly from serving on program committees for learning at scale or other interdisciplinary fields in the past, where we get these rubrics where we're evaluating work, process of writing our comments and engaging in the program committee meeting, where you start to hear that the standards that some people are using are different because of their own disciplinary background. So I thought that this would be a great opportunity, conversations just in small little isolated pockets while people are trying to review the same paper, to bring the larger program committee and others that are interested in this area together to just share their thought processes about when they're evaluating work, what kinds of things are they thinking about. Intended it all to try and build some sort of monolithic agreement on what good work looks like, but just to start to have a less intense, stressful time when you're trying to share your thinking about what good work, what good contributions to this interdisciplinary field look like. So we've set up these 4 potential discussion groups, but I thought it might also be good to look at the rubrics that were used in Learning at Scale 2016, the scoring categories that were used then in order to for people to comment on or evaluate work. Talk about how you interpret those kinds of categories when you're looking at different pieces of work from your disciplinary perspective. And these scoring categories are listed in the Google Doc, but just so people know what they are, there was obviously an overall evaluation, and then there's also a statement about how confident you feel as a researcher, there you go, how you feel as a researcher to be evaluating this work. And then there are a couple of specific scoring categories. Relevance to learning at scale. So you might say this is a great piece of work, but it doesn't really fit with the goals of learning at scale. So this is a lovely time to talk about and get a shared understanding of what we all think learning at scale, what that is and how that fits. And then novelty. You know, is this a piece of work that is obviously novel? And then what the theoretical and practical significance are of the work, and then the technical and analytical soundness of the work, and then the positioning, how well they position the work relative to prior work, and then clarity and composition of writing, which maybe isn't one that we need to, that is as special to an interdisciplinary field. But anyway, so I thought it would be good, and these questions that we have formulated for each of the breakout groups to ask, to talk about, we've also sort of connected those up with the scoring categories that we think might be relevant to that question. For example, asking great questions, deciding what work to do. That's potentially relevant to the scoring categories of relevance and theoretical and practical significance. So, Justin, your calendar's up on the screen for some reason. Okay, so I think that's enough comments from me, other than to just say thanks so much. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Justin?
Yes, I'm super enthusiastic as well. Look at my calendar because my wife is calling me because my daughter is sick and someone needs to go pick her up. So we're trying to negotiate which of us would it be a bigger crisis to leave. So hopefully it won't be me, but we'll figure that out in a minute. Good. So the way that we thought that we would set this up is that there are 4 breakout rooms, and the idea is that the breakout rooms give us some themes. There are about 20 of us here, and so if we break up into 4 different groups, that would be a pretty good, there'd be 4 or 5 people in each group, and that seems like it would be the right number of folks. We had sort of suggested kind of 4 parts of a paper as a way of letting each group kind of focus on one particular element of work. So the first breakout group, and once a group is formed, it can take these things and move them in any direction and run with them. But one would be about asking great questions. One would be about trying to figure out what makes research worthwhile to begin with. A second one would be to think about those issues of prior work and how we build an interdisciplinary field. The third one is methods. Especially I think for social scientists, this is a particularly precarious time to be thinking about what good methodological work looks like with the sort of crisis of replicability and all these kinds of things. And as a relatively new field, we may be specially equipped to be able to engage in those conversations productively. And then characterizing contributions and making impact, sort of what options there are there. I should have just unlocked it too, so that people can propose an additional session. So if people have other ideas for topics of conversation that they might like to have, you can type some suggestions in the chat window here. And then other people can sort of join their groups. Ideally, the way this would work is that everybody would get into a breakout room. And so let me just say that if you want to suggest any other sessions, now would be a good time to do that, either just by proposing one or by starting a little conversation in the chat room here. But in a second, I'll unlock all of these. Hopefully what happens is that people sort of settle into a couple of these different rooms. And then people would settle into these different rooms, introduce yourselves to one another, maybe talk for, if somebody wants to volunteer to be kind of a facilitator, that would be great. It would be great if people were really active in taking notes in their rooms. Then the next set of things would be to just have a conversation for 30 or 45 minutes about whatever your group is interested in. If people want to switch groups as they're going along, we'll run it. The unhangout technology framework is a little bit like an ed camp or a bar camp. Or an unconference framework, where the idea is that you should be able to choose the conversations that you're part of. As soon as you enter a room, you'll be sort of whisked within there and be automatically put into a Google Hangout with other folks. And then in about 30 or 45 minutes, I'll sort of bounce among the rooms and see how people are doing. And when we come to the end of the conversation, ideally people can try to summarize what they've said in a bit of an executive summary, and we'll have one volunteer from each group who comes into the main Google Hangout on air and helps give sort of a debrief. So Ido has some great ideas about identity, and sort of, I think that's exactly right, Ido, that some of these things might be able to fit in existing things. Maybe ask great questions is a way to talk about, like, what are great questions? Well, who are we? And whether MOOCs or beyond MOOCs or other things fit in there. If you think it deserves an extra category, feel free to propose a session. Although maybe you can just join that group and feel like extending things. So I think that's sort of all we need for preface right now. Before I open the rooms, does anybody have any other questions that they want to ask, or anything else that they want to, while we're all sort of in the same virtual space, so to speak? Anybody else have anything that they want to raise? And I have to wait, because one of the things you might have realized is that we're on about a 10-second lag. Yep, Neil, I think that's exactly right. What the replicability and soundness would be great things for group 3 to do. Well, hopefully, given the number of people we have, maybe 4 rooms is a good number. So I'm going to go ahead and open the sessions. Would encourage everyone to pick the sessions that seem most of interest to them, and then jump in. So for the things that you're interested in, maybe another goal could be that it'd be great if people find themselves in sessions that have both some computer scientists and some learning scientists, or at least a diverse group of people in them. Good. So people should feel free now to jump into the different rooms, start having some conversations there, and I'll try to jump across all four to facilitate.
Justin?
Yes.
It won't let me join any of the other meetings because it says I'm in this one. So
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and drop out of this one?
Okay.